Hi, it's Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review. We're going to talk about the new 4K edition of Stripes. I really can't add anything to the conversation about this movie. This 1981 classic by Ivan Reitman cemented his career. Bill Murray, John Candy, and a staff of other people. Ivan Reitman produced this. He directed it. Harold Ramis, who co-starred in it, co-wrote it after writing Animal House and some other movies like Caddyshack. Hadn't done much as an actor yet, but wow, what a force of nature this is. It was a $9 to $10 million budget, went on to gross $85 million, 8 times this budget, and was number 5 biggest movie of 1981. I saw this when I was too young. I was in high school when we saw this. I think the first time was probably on VHS in one of those rockathon things on a Friday night where they were trying to keep us entertained all night, locked in and rocking for some kind of charity. We watched all sorts of rated R movies like this and Scanners, but most of them didn't have any nudity in it or sex, but this one did. And rewatching it now, I'm a little shocked at some of the stuff, actually. But I have seen this movie more times than most people. I think most people have seen it so many times they can quote the biggest lines. Obviously, there was a lot of improvisation going on. There's so many set pieces, so many classic things to talk about. If you haven't seen Stripes, go see it. It's the best Army comedy movie ever made, really. And that being said, this was not a movie that was on my list to pick up. I've got the Blu-ray that has the original version, the theatrical version, and the extended version. And I'm not the biggest fan of the extended version. There's some funny stuff that happens, but it adds like 16 minutes to the movie. And it makes it way too long for what a light-hearted comedy it was. I watched the theatrical version in 4K and did not watch the extended version. But anyway, I have this on Blu-ray, and it wasn't something I was going to upgrade. And then the reviews on Blu-ray.com were like, this is a 5 out of 5 disc. I'm like, really? How could that movie be a 5 out of 5? So waited for, I think it was during Amazon Prime days or whatever, the Steelbook dropped really low. The movie before this was only available in one of those Columbia. They've done volume sets of movies. They'll release like 5 or 6 movies in a box. That's the only way to get them. And then later on, they usually get single releases. Starman is one that's just coming out that was in one of those box sets. And I don't pick up those because really, they threw 5 or 6 random Columbia movies into a box and went, here you go. And there's a horror movie in there and a comedy. Well, they did do a horror set. Paramount did one. But anyway, long story short, the only way to get this was in a set. Now you can get it individually, but as Sony does, sometimes with the new 4Ks, they release it in a Steelbook first. Now, when I read reviews, it said that it didn't have a Dolby Atmos soundtrack. Well, it does now. It's got Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision. And while this is a grainy-looking film, the 4K is spectacular. It looks fantastic. Like I said, there's some really grainy scenes, but this was 1981. It was a $10 million movie. It's not like, they were using the most expensive film stock they could. These were a lot of new up-and-coming actors. This was originally going to be a Cheech and Chong movie. And Cheech and Chong wanted complete creative control, and they thought, well, maybe not. But anyway, in one of the extras on the new 4K, they said they couldn't afford Cheech and Chong, but it depends on what story you read. There are 2 new extras that are on the 4K. They also include a Blu-ray. I didn't check to see if it was remastered or anything, but the 2 new extras are 2 about 20-minute long conversations with Ivan Reitman and Bill Murray now. 40 years later, talking about making the movie, talking about John Candy, talking about the other actors, when they didn't have budget for certain things or they couldn't film certain things and that kind of, they were very interesting. They could have put them together. I don't know why they split them up into 2. They basically start from a scene and then the conversation goes from there. But you literally get about 40, 45 minutes of conversations with the director and the star about this movie 40 years after it's become what it's become. It is part of our vernacular. I mean, say Stripes to anybody, you're going to hear that's the fact, Jack, or any number of lines you can pull out of this movie, and a lot of them were ad-libbed at the time. I think everybody is fantastic in the movie, especially some of the actors that let themselves get poked fun of, like Warren Oates as Sergeant Hulka. I mean, he keeps a straight face. I don't even know how that's possible, being across Bill Murray and some of the things he said. Now, watching it now in 2025, it does come across as an early 80s comedy, late 70s thing, but it's still funny, and it still holds up. Maybe not every joke lands the same way it did then, but other jokes land differently now. I still howled out loud at a lot of it, and obviously I've seen it enough times to know what's coming. But going back to the 4K, they brought the soundtrack up into modern times. There's some really nice surround sound effects. The soundtrack from Albert Bernstein sounds fantastic. Columbia Pictures really did well with this 4K for a movie that you wouldn't think. Now, I remember seeing this on the big screen at some point, probably a midnight movie, and back in the day when I was younger, I usually sat on the third row center. That was my seat. And in a lot of theaters today, that would be way too close. But back then, they didn't put seats so close to the screen as they do now to fill up that space and make some more money. So anyway, that was my place to sit, and I always sat a little too close to the movies and remember how grainy this film was. So watching it now, the grain is handled well, but it's still there because it's film. But the details, when they do close-ups on Warren Oates' face, you see every wrinkle, every crag, every bit of stubble. We could talk about some of the other things with PJ Souls, the Aunt Jemima treatment. But anyway, the movie looks great from beginning to end and sounds almost like a modern film, which is pretty rare. Forgot John Larroquette was even in this. He's got the dumb, commander of the camp role. It still holds up. What a great movie. 1981 Stripes on 4K. I would pick it up. If you own the DVD, for sure. If you own the Blu-ray, that'll be up to you on how big your TV is. But I really think they knocked it out of the park. I don't know if I'd give it a 5 out of 5 like Blu-ray.com did, but maybe a 4.5. It looks better than it ever has looked, and this is probably the best we're going to get. Check out Stripes. It's available now in a steelbook. It's usually around $30-$35. You can get it cheaper than that when it's on sale. I think the movie still holds up. The new extras were quite nice to see and give you a little bit of background, and I really was not a movie I would upgrade into 4K, but now it gets my highest recommendation upgrade. What do you know? Anyway, love this movie. Scott, I'm ROCKFILE. More podcasts are on the way. Thank you so much for listening, and have a spectacular day.